Happy International Pan Day, my friend. We finally made it. I am so happy for the nation. I'm so happy for ourselves.
Yeah.
Getting that recognition is something that we always needed. International Pan Day.
Yes, man. No more
So if the
missing
world
out.
don't know, they'll know today.
Yes.
Well, it's supposed to know.
Yes.
And for
Big
those
achievement,
countries who
really.
want to lay claim to it, well, hey,
Mm.
we're the Mecca of Pan. Don't forget that.
Yes. Yes.
So have you been?
I've been cool taking it easy.
Taking in
Rolling
this
with the
taking in the
the kind.
sports, the World Youth Games, the Commonwealth
No,
Youth Games.
no, well, somehow I am kind of lapsed with them. You see, when it has kind of thing,
You like junior, you just forget everything else.
yes.
Once there is pan,
But
junior just forget everything else.
fun all over the country, yes, all over the country. I've been following.
Well, that's great.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're here this evening, and we're here to discuss a topic on sexplosion. And the topic today, someone asked the question: Is sex spiritual? And that's a very serious question. That's a question that needs a lot of thought and insight. But the quick answer to that is yes, sex is spiritual. It's very spiritual. And that's the quick, easy answer. But answering the question alone is not sufficient. Answering the question, you need to go into what the spirituality and sex has,
Recording in progress.
what what it has to do, and what's in common with sex and spirituality. So let's take it back to time immemorial, the beginning of dawn, the dawn and dawn of time. And again, I can only go back to my background, and my background is in Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma, when it comes to these things, because there's a lot of teaching when it comes to sex in Sanatan Dharma, when it comes to what we commonly refer to as procreation, when you have to deal with these topics. And in Sanatan Dharma, there are many books written on the topic of sex and sexuality and sexual behavior. There are many manuals are that have been done, and there are actual schools of thought and behavior and patterns that deals with sex and sexual practices. And that's the most comprehensive bit of information that the world have on sex. So when one thinks about sex and the creation of man and mankind, it's integral to spirituality. One touches the other. Just as much as a person who's taking a spiritual path has to detach himself or herself from that sexual energy that they emit, and use that sexual energy as part of their grounding and part of their journey into their spiritual side, because of the closeness and the interlocking of sex and spirituality. We have to be cognizant of those facts. But it's important to understand that two things that create, according to human being, is God and sex. There's no religion that will tell you creation came from anything other than God. And if we associate God and godliness and God and spirituality, and we associate God with creation of mankind, and when I say man, I mean mankind, then obviously sex is part of that creative process. So the only two things that really creates is God and sex. So sex has to be godly, and God has to incorporate part of what godliness is about. It's also about sex. But there is a carnal part of sex, which is the pleasurable part of sex, also that is covered in Sanatan Dharma, in the Hindu philosophy, in the text by the Hindus, where there's many books written on the pleasure of sex and the tantric sex and Kama Sutra and the Ananga Ranga and all the other books associated with sex. But if you take sex in its raw form, we would understand that it's two entities coming together, creating that union through copulation, which is sex, creating another entity. But we are fortunate, and not only we, but the other animals out there who are fortunate to understand that sex is also pleasurable. So they indulge in sexual practices also as human beings would because of the pleasure associated with it. And you will see in some of the depictions of carvings and different sexual acts, you'll see all the different aspects of sex and sexuality and sexual behavior. So when one looks at that, you'll understand that, hey, we as humankind, as we evolve and become maybe more modernized, we have placed certain restrictions on things that are sexual, whereas the ancient manuscripts and texts and carvings and drawings and whatnot depicts all the level of sex and sexual behavior and sexuality. So it's important to understand these things and know that we evolve from time to time sexually in our sexual practices and our sexual behavior. Now, there's no other writing on sex as comprehensive as those from the Hindu texts. So whether it be one of the sastras, one of the sutras, or any book that depicts the beginning of time, the dawn of mankind on earth, and the sexual practices, you'll see that even the sexual energy of Lord Shiva in the creative process is something that is talked about, is something that is depicted, is something that is part and parcel of that creation. You have what you call tantric sex, which is the highest form of sex and the highest form of the enjoyment of sex and sexual intercourse. But it's not only penetrative sex we're talking about, because in tantra and tantric sex, you could have sex with someone without actually penetrating or coupling with the person. And that's a really high sense and a really elevated way of having sex. But if we break that down into the what we consider to be sexual today, even some of the things that we do in the exercises and in yoga and whatnot, it has a sexual connotation to it also. But let's stray away from that and talk about the spiritual aspect of sex. Now, we're not talking about marriage here. We're talking about just the sexual act and persons coming together to create another being. If you're coming together to create another being, obviously creation is spiritual. So that whole creative process that is sexual also brings about another life form. So yes, it is very spiritual. I recall once I was asked to give a lecture to all the bishops, the Anglican bishops in Trinidad, from the Caribbean. They had this conference. And when I stood up to give my lecture, the Bishop of St. Vincent asked me a question. He said, Dr. Raj, do you believe sex is spiritual? And I turned to him and said, yes, sex is very spiritual. He said, okay, now you can speak to us. And he understood there and then that I knew what I was talking about, because had I said, no, it's not spiritual, it's just for carnal knowledge and pleasure, they would have said, well, this man come here to talk stupidness. And I understood from a very early age, and doing my research and reading and going into all aspects of sex and sexuality and human behavior and all those things, I understood very clearly what it meant and the spiritual aspect of it. And I do know that for one to elevate oneself, there are those who sacrifice that part of their being, the sexual part of their being, in order to attain that high level of spirituality. And yes, there are saints and sages and mystics and all these other people who stray away or stay away from the sexual act simply to become one with God on earth. And that's okay, because everyone has a role and function in life. Especially from a Hindu perspective, we understand what their role and functions are. The sannyasis and all these yogis and whatnot that lives high in the Himalayas, they live and they're butt naked, but they walk around in the Himalayas butt naked in that cold weather that mankind has to put on 10 layers of clothing to walk around even in the snow. But they do it. But because they are elevated souls, they understand what their roles and functions are and what they have to do. So, barring that, when you think about tantric sex and when you think about tantra, that also came from what one will call God, or what the Hindus will call Lord Shiva, and the instructions that were given when it comes to that aspect of sex and sexuality and sexual behavior, understanding oneself and the need and passion that one has. Even the symbol in Hinduism, which is called the Shiv Lingam, lingam meaning penis, Shiv is Lord Shiva, the lingam is something that we worship. But the lingam is not only the lingam, the base of the lingam is the yoni. The yoni is the vagina. And when you talk about the yoni, the penis comes out of the yoni to make the symbol of creation. So if the highest form of worship for Hindus is Lord Shiva worship, and it is the representation of the genitalia of both the male and the female, that is sexual. So we understand very well that yes, it is a spiritual thing. It has a lot of energy within that lingam, and Hindus will understand very well, although it's not something that is thought of widely. Maybe I think I was the first person to bring that to the public's attention on radio many years ago when I first started off. And I had calls by Hindu pundits to ask me where did I get that from. So I asked them, the first question I asked was, did I say anything wrong? And they said, no, but where did you get that from? How could you have a discourse on the Shivlingam and hit all the points and know all these different things? And it's something that is very deep, and it has a lot to do with the play between Lord Shiva and his consort, because all the Hindu gods, with the exception of Lord Hanuman, has a female consort. And that alone tells you something. One does not exist without the other. And the sexual part of that is male and female, but the spiritual part of that, you cannot have one, which is the male energy, without the female energy. And when the male and the female energy comes together, it creates, that's what it does. The male and female energy comes together and creates. The female energy is what keeps the male energy going also. Without the female energy, a man lives in a bubble. He cannot be totally a man. Unless, of course, he has taken that spiritual part. But if you want to live off the material world, and if you want to live in this world, you'll understand that you need that female part to balance your energy. The balancing of energies is very important. So that male-female energy and the interplay between male and female energy is something that is very important to understand, and very important to embrace as human beings. Because one would be lost in this world if we did not understand the true essence of that. So that's why every Hindu deity, or people say Hindus have 1,000,000 gods. Yes, we have more than 1,000,000 gods, but they all come from one God, which is Shiva. They all come from one source. People will say no, it's not as easy as that. Be dismissive when it comes to that. So I'm not here to argue that point or even talk about those things. I am here to just simply put across the information that yes, sex is spiritual. It is something that is needed to be understood in that spiritual realm, that are created are the energies that you use for sex. Why is that? I don't know, but I'm still connected. I was connected here, getting a feedback.
Okay, you sounded nice and clear now.
Okay, but I'm getting a feedback. Headphones. So when one understands that the importance of the spirituality of sex, that is where we now go into what we call, let's say, a union between man and woman. Now, some person will ask, well, obviously sex came before marriage. I don't want anyone to think that marriage came before sex. Sex was there before marriage, long before marriage. And however you want to put it, however you want to look at it, based on religion or any religious teaching, sex was there before marriage. Because religion came afterwards, except for Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma has been around since time immemorial, from the very beginning. But again, Hindus will tell you we don't have a religion, we just have a way of life. Anyone can embrace it. You could be a Christian Hindu, you could be a Muslim Hindu, you could be a Jew Hindu, anyone could be a Hindu. Anyone. Once just follow the teaching of Hinduism, and you don't have to follow the strict teaching of Hinduism to be a Hindu either, because there are many branches of Hinduism that people follow and they're still Hindu. They still understand that yes, this is what Hinduism is all about. So that's why it's all embracing. We cannot condemn any religion because we understand as a Hindu, every religious path or every pathway that leads to God is accepted, and it should not be condemned. It is something that should be embraced. And we understand that perfectly well. Just as in Hinduism, we have many different branches of Hinduism, those who eat meat, those who don't eat meat, those who are warriors, those who are a businessman, those who are Brahmins. We understand all that. As true Hindus, we'll understand that. So again, I'm not here to preach Hinduism. I'm here to preach about sex and sexuality. But I want to make that clear because sometimes a person might be confused and say, well, how could he be talking about something like that when there's a disparity with other religion and sex and other way of life and sex? Because there's no cohesion in any other religion when it comes to the religion and sex. There's none except for Hinduism that embraces all and every aspects of sex, even the LBGQ, whatever you want to call them, aspect of sex. It is understood. The third gender is understood in Hinduism. It's something that is part and parcel, and it's embraced by Hinduism. So one takes that path of spirituality. It's when you renounce that person will renounce the sexual aspect of their own being. But if you are a ordinary human being living a life of whatever you're doing, whatever you plan to do, whatever you want to do in life, sex is part and parcel of that. And yes, when you engage in sex, there are energies that are being created, there are energies that are being used by both parties, and there are energies that you actually put into whatever you're doing. Now, when one look at the different aspects of sex and sexuality, human behavior, you will understand there's different permutation of how people accept sex or how they do their sexual act. But it doesn't mean to say you don't create that energy there. It may be at a lower level, it may be at a higher level. If you're doing it strictly for pleasure, we know that there is a level of sexual energy when you do have sex for pleasure. And it's something that could be uplifting to the individual. It could be draining for the individual because one person might be positive for one person and negative for another person. I know there are many school of thought when it comes to that spiritual aspect of sex, and there's a negative connotation to some of the things that people do and whatnot. And there are things that people use, their sayings and their words that they use that makes it look as though sex could be something that is detrimental and dangerous to one's health if you are promiscuous or if you do certain things. But there are persons who engage in sex as a practice, and when look at Christianity and they talk about the oldest profession in the world, which is a prostitution, they engage in sex. They engage in sex as a job. But do they have those negativities associated with it? It's the people will look at those persons negatively and want to treat them as outcasts or as lesser being. But are they that way? And if you go back now to the Hindu way of it, there are devadasis and there are persons who that's their role and function in life. We don't talk about these things as much anymore because some of it was buried by the British Raj. They wanted to rewrite the history of India. And now with the Renaissance and with social media and TikTok and YouTube and whatnot, you see more and more information coming out of India about these things. But for almost 1,000 years, 950 years, because of the rule of the Mughals and the rule of the British Raj in India, these things were buried. These things they were wanted to destroy. Their temples with carvings of every sexual act that you could think about. And there's a reason for those carvings on the temple. There's a reason for it because it's instructional. It's not only there for decoration. As a matter of fact, it's not there for decoration. It's there for instructions to mankind. All the carvings that you have in these temples in India, and these are temples where people go to worship and, well, bring forth their spiritual self. But again, because of the westernization of the world, all the ancient people, and I'm talking about the ancient people here, Africans, Indians, Sumerians, the Mayans, the Japanese, the Chinese, they understood that aspect of it. But because of the westernization of the world and the Victorian era and whatnot, a lot of these things were hidden and buried. Like I said, it's only now, because information has become so easily accessible, and anyone can get information and read about it, and you can use your own free will and thought to say, wait a minute, these things existed long ago. It was always there. That's why I keep preaching to individuals that there's nothing new in porn. Absolutely nothing new. And to prove that, if you go to the temples in India where they have these depictions and carving, anything that you could conjure up in your mind, it's there on the wall. And if it's there on the wall, it came from somewhere and someone. And if these temples, let's say, are 5,000 years old, 2,000 years old, or however, even with Hindu texts telling you how old these things are, you'll have Western scientists telling you, well, it could only be 2,000 years old or 500 years old or whatever. But in our texts and in our way of calculation of time with the yugas, the 4 yugas, you will understand that some of these things are thousands and hundreds of thousands of years old. And it's impossible for human being now to comprehend that. The Ramsuti Bridge between India and Sri Lanka is 1,800,000 years old. It's not 5,000 years old, as some people would like to tell you. And ignorant, and when I say ignorant, I don't mean ignorant and stupid. I mean ignorant in terms of not having the information. Ignorant individuals, especially ignorant Hindu individuals, will tell you, well, scientists tell you it is only 5,000 years old, when our books will tell you how old it is. And that's what gets me with people, that we have the proof of these things. Dwaraka sank 5,000 years ago. The city of Lord Krishna, 5,000 years ago. If you look at other religion, they cannot go back to that length of time. No religion. They tell you the oldest civilization was the Sumerians. The Sumerians were here long after Hindus, long after, because our history goes back tens of thousands of years. But again, because of doubts, and because the Christian world doesn't want to accept that this is a fact, they will tell you, well, it could only be 5,000 years old or 4,000 years old. They limit it because it's limited to their imagination and nothing else. And that's what irks me. It really irks me. So when you go back to these temples and you see all these different depiction of things that are sexual, it's there. And all the books, and remember, books were not written thousands of years ago. It was handed down by word of mouth. Carvings and drawing and those things came afterwards, and books came long after that. But the fact still remains. It's there, and it's there for all to see. And that's what's mind-boggling. It's there for all to see, but it's there for all to see with a limit in your imagination, because someone tells you it could not have existed 10,000, 20,000 years ago because man was not existing. And it's so mind-boggling when our scriptures tell us differently. And when we are having our discourse, we refer to those things, but nobody stands up and says it out loudly because they're afraid or ashamed, because somebody's going to tell them, well, you mad. It cannot be like that. But I want somebody to tell me I'm mad. I want somebody to tell me that, because the proof is there. It's there. So it's there for sex. It's there for tantric sex. That's why Hindus talk about time immemorial. And the only people who could talk about time immemorial, because we go back to the beginning of time. And that is something that we have to understand and embrace and not vilify us for it. Because we can go back to the beginning of time, people are afraid of us. Because we can give you a history from the beginning of time. And sex started at the beginning of time. Tantra started at that time. In the form of when Lord Shiva was Rudra. In that form, that creative energy to create the universe. Now, it could be very controversial for those who don't want to accept it, and those who might be, shunned away by the information and saying, well, that cannot be real, and you're making up, it's Nancy's story, and it's something that you're just making up. But it's not. It's not. And I do not have to apologize for the history of us. I can't. I should not have to apologize for that. I come from a great lineage, a very great lineage. And because of my teaching and because of my research and going into these things, I'm proud to say that, yes, we have teachings on everything. Science, they talk about gravity. And Sir Isaac Newton discovering gravity. When Hindus knew about gravity long before, thousands of years before, they talk about space. When the Pushpak Biman was a flying chariot that was on Earth. And these things existed. And the proof is there in India and Sri Lanka. So the same thing with the sexual part of it. It existed. It's there. The proof is there. But nobody wants to admit it. Even some Hindus are ashamed to admit it or afraid to because they can't defend it. I know of Hindu friends that I have who do not want to go back beyond maybe 2,000 or 3,000 years ago because they cannot explain anything to themselves. They're not versed. They have not gone after the knowledge, so they themselves don't know of these facts. So they live in ignorance. That's what it is. They live in ignorance. And when I sometimes tell them about these things, they're astonished. They're stunned to know that I have all this information and I could tell them about these things. Sometimes I hold back with some of my information because, again, persons will label you as being... one person I remember talking about these things on radio, and a person called up the radio station and said I was racial because I was talking about Hinduism. They equate Hinduism with race. Any race could be a Hindu. That's why Hinduism is something that is growing in Africa. But anyone could be a Hindu. It has nothing to do with race. The only place in the world where they are protected African people is in India. How many people know that? There are 2 islands, Nicobar Island. What's the other one? It just slipped me. And Sentinel Island. 2 islands that no human being could go on those islands because there are African people living there and they are in the Dark Ages. And no human being is allowed to go there. It's protected by the Indian government. How many people know that? And the first thing people will jump on is race. Saying you're racial. Did you know that?
No.
All right. No, people don't know. They don't want to know. A Christian person 5 years ago wanted to go there and convert everybody to Christianity. They eat him. They kill him and eat him. And the Indian government has warned you, do not go and interfere with these people. They are protected by the Indian government. So, these are the things that people have to open up their minds to and take race out of the equation and start opening up their minds. And they will understand spirituality and sexuality much better. People will not be as close-minded as they are. It's like custom officers telling you, if it's shaped like a penis, it is illegal. Well, they should seize all Shivlingam in Trinidad because it's shaped like a penis. That's how dotish they are. Because they themselves are not educated. So if somebody imported a Shivlingam into Trinidad, lingam means penis. In case they didn't know, so they should seize every Shivlingam that comes into Trinidad. Because it's shaped like a penis. In case they don't know. So they should say, well, here what we just seize anything that's shaped like a penis. That's how dotish they are, people. That's how antiquated people are in their thinking. And I have no problem in telling you that in your face. I have no problem in telling you it in your face. because I know you're not educated enough to answer me. And that's the problem, you know. When I say something like that, you don't have the education to answer me back. You don't have it. You just don't have it. You have to do that research. You have to be part and parcel of that. And you also have to be spiritual in order to understand that. You think I could be a sexologist without being spiritual? For 1 minute, do you think I could have been a sexologist without being spiritual and understanding the spiritual realm and doing my research, but also being rooted, deeply rooted in my spiritual self, in my religion? No. Then what would I be? Then the person who says that they're a sexologist and they're not rooted in their spiritual self, they're just in it for the sex. They're not a sexologist. They don't understand what happens to the human mind, what happens to the behavior patterns and all these things. So those are the things. That's why people need to be educated all the time. That's why Sexplosion is a very important program. To understand that, hey, what we know today is nothing. We don't know anything. We need to go back and we need to explore. Many years ago at the Diwali Nagar, they had the depiction of ancient Hindu things. I wonder how many people went and saw that. The first surgery that was done, how many thousands of years ago, surgical instrument and things that were used, mathematics. Without Hindus, you couldn't have mathematics on this earth. Indians invented the numerical system and they invented the zero. How many people know that? They just call it the Arabic numericals. You know why? Because the Arabs stole it from India and took it outside to the world. Stole it. Mathematics, astrology, philosophy. You feel Aristotle and them didn't go to India to study? Where you feel they got their education from? That's where they got it. They went to India to study. They didn't get that on their own. And we Hindus, as we are afraid to talk about our spiritual self. So I am not. I give it to them left, right, and center. But as I tell you, they cannot answer me because they're not educated enough to go into that depth to understand what I know. We have a book on every single thing that you could ask about, you know, even space exploration, you know. Which country gave them water on the moon? Hindus. India, the Chandrayaan rocket, they sent it up on the moon and they showed them where there was water on the moon. How many people know that? That was only done 8 years ago. When everybody doubted there was water on the moon, India said, we'll show you where the water is. Come, let me go. On the 23rd of this month, the Chandrayaan 3 is going to land on the moon, on the south side of the moon. We know these things because for Ganga Mata, for water to come on earth, it had to bounce off the moon. We knew exactly where it bounced off the moon. That's how water came on earth. So you understand how deep the spiritual thing is? And for everything you talk about on this earth, there is a book in Hinduism, there's a sutra, a Puranas, a Sastra that explains it in depth. Now everybody in this big Oppenheimer thing, and Oppenheimer read the Bhagavad Gita, that's how he was able to make the atomic bomb. The first atomic explosion on this earth, the first atomic explosion on this earth was 5,000 years ago on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And Oppenheimer said it. He said this is the first atomic explosion in the modern times. But there was one before that. And it's there in the Bhagavad Gita. How many people know this thing? And then they'll want to call me stupid and dotish and we don't understand things. We're very educated. I remember my grandfather didn't reach, I didn't think he only reached standard 1 or 2. And they say he was illiterate. But nobody could have talked Hindi and things like he. And nobody read books like him. But he was illiterate. But that's because of a Christian perspective. So getting back to the topic of sex. It's the same, very same thing. The fundamentals of sex, it's all there. The basis of sex is all there. The spirituality attached to sex, it's all there. It's written. If one takes the time to read these books, like Now, in modern times, everyone embraces the Kama Sutra when it comes to sex. But do you know in the Kama Sutra, it's not about sex? What Kama Sutra means? Kam, love. Sutra, instruction in love. It's not instruction in sex. It instructs the individual how to go about being in love, making love, loving someone, appreciating the opposite sex, getting that person to like you. That's what the Kama Sutra is all about. All these different positions and things you see in books, that's not from the Kama Sutra. That is not from the Kama Sutra. Those are from the carvings of the temples of India, the Ananga Ranga. The Kama Sutra, and that came from Lord Shiva giving instructions to his wife on the art of lovemaking. And Nandi, which is the protector of Lord Shiva, the vessel of Lord Shiva, the transport mode of Lord Shiva, he gave that to mankind. Nandi the bull. If you see Lord Shiva, you'll always see with a bull. And that's how it came. And we must understand that, because in Treta Yuga, humans and animals could communicate very easily. And we have 4 yugas. Right now we're in Kali Yuga. So I could tie in anything with anything. It's just that I don't like to end up in an argument, because ignorant people, and I'm talking about ignorant and stupid people, just want to argue, dotish points. Because they could only go back 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, and that's it. Some religious history could only go back so far and tell you that's it. I remember giving a person a drop in my vehicle once, and they were questioning. I had a Trishul, a swastika, and a Om. Well, Om is the sound of the universe. NASA scientists has proven that. And they'll tell you, in the beginning of the universe came from Om. The sound of Om came from Lord Shiva. And not OM. People say OM. It's not OM. Om. It's not Om. It's Om. AUM. That's the correct pronunciation, the correct writing of Om. Not Om. That's a bastardized version of it. And as true Hindus, we have to start embracing that and understanding it. People, I'm talking to you all. Whoever you call yourself a Hindu and half it's like asking a Hindu if you believe in aliens, and they'll tell you no. But we are aliens. We come from the Surya Brahmins race. That's the first thing. And they'll tell you no. So how could you be a Hindu if you don't believe in that? So these are the things that people have to understand, and understand it well. And when it comes to one's sexual energy and one's sexual self, start embracing that and educate yourself on that. And go back to the ancient text and read it for what it is, and not what you want it to be, or somebody who makes an interpretation of it. If you take an interpretation by some Englishman, he will twist and turn that to make it sound English, to make it sound as though they invented it, So you have to be very careful about that. Anyway, we have questions. Let's get to the questions.
So the first question is, what would you say to those who feel uncomfortable discussing sex and sexuality?
Get educated. Educate yourself, and you'll understand that you can have many discussions on sex and sexuality and sexual behavior and your own self if you're educated enough. Many times I'm in a conversation with persons, and the discussion obviously will come to sex. I could tell you, anytime people get together, sex comes up in that discussion, somehow or the other, right? But if you're uneducated, if you don't know the basis of yourself and sex and behavior and whatnot, how could you carry on a conversation? All you'll do is argue, and you'll argue it on the point that, hey, Henry says so and so, or they say. It's not they say. Go to the historical facts and give the person facts and say, then you go and do your research, It might sound arrogant, and I know I'm sounding that way when sometimes when I say, but it is not arrogance. It is just telling you, here what? There's information out there, and you're living in ignorance. That's what it is.
The next question is, how do you navigate discussions around sensitive or taboo topics?
Be truthful. That's what I just did here. I was being truthful. Because it's a taboo topic to talk about religion and sex. It's a taboo topic to talk about Hinduism. How many people in this world want to hear about Hinduism? Very few. Because it's not the norm. It's a non-Abrahamic religion. So the Christian world has made it into a religion. We don't believe it's a religion.
It's a way of life.
It's just a way of life.
How can couples enhance their communication around sexual desires and boundaries?
It's a difficult thing, especially if you are closed-minded and if you have come from a sheltered background. Sometimes to initiate the talk about sex, it's a difficult proposition for individuals and couples. But you should try. You should try to find out about the person's. The best way to go about it is try to find out about the person's wants, desires, and likes, and then hopefully in the conversation they would ask you about your wants, desire, and likes. Excuse me.
What do you think are the biggest challenges that couples face in marriage?
The biggest challenge one faces in marriage would be understanding each other and trying to please one another. In many facets, not only sexually. Sometimes your partner may not be pleased by your behavior when it comes to the way you interact with your friends, society, and other things. So trying to please your partner is very challenging, because remember, everyone has what they term to be their ideal way of dealing with things, but not everyone deals with the same situation in the same way. So if you and I are faced with the same situation, you will deal with it one way based on your personality and based on your background. I will deal with it in another way. And it may not be pleasing to you the way I deal with it, and it may not be pleasing to me the way you deal with it. So that's the biggest challenge you face in a relationship. Of course, sex falls into that.
If your relationship is having problems and only one spouse is willing to go to therapy, do you think it would still be helpful to the relationship?
No. How is it going to be really helpful? One person going to therapy is not going to be helpful at all, because what the information you're going to get, how are you going to implement that information to your partner? How are you going to use it when your partner is not there to understand that these are the techniques or these are the things that we must do? If you are in a relationship and you have an issue in the relationship, both parties must be present when you want to deal with it.
In a relationship or marriage, do you believe that you have to tell your partner everything?
Of course not. Of course not. Everybody needs their privacy, and everyone needs to have their own thoughts and fantasies and whatnot. You don't have to tell your partner everything. You have to tell your partner important things that are going to impact on both of you. You should share those things. I wouldn't say, I don't like to use the word tell. Share is a better word to use. Share your feelings, share your desires, your wants that you know that the person could fulfill. If the person is incapable of fulfilling it, why tell them about it? You're only going to bring strife to your relationship. So you do not have to tell your partner everything. You do not have to share everything about you with your partner, because there are some things that, let's say for example, and this is an extreme. Let's say for example, you commit a criminal act, and in telling your partner you're going to incriminate that person, and that person become part of your crime. Don't share that. So that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Good.
What are some things couples can do to strengthen their relationship?
What does what?
What are some things couples can do to strengthen their relationship?
Again, it comes back to communication. It comes back to understanding each other. It comes back to sharing. All these different things. There's so many aspects of a relationship that needs to be embraced by both parties, and you make sure that you in embracing these qualities, you you strengthen the bond between each other. You're not going to, argument, cussing, fighting, domestic abuse, hitting, those things doesn't strengthen a relationship. It weakens a relationship. Love, expression of love, caring, providing. Those are the things that strengthen a relationship, and those are the things that you must employ all the time. You're following my leg anywhere I put it. Stop it. Next.
What are some tips you can give a couple to help with the recovery of their sex life after infidelity?
Well, first and foremost, it depends on which party has done the wrong and how the other person looks at it. But like everything else, sometimes there's some persons who can use that as a positive, you know. You can use the sexual exploit of your partner as foreplay if you're open-minded enough. And that's one of the things that a lot of couples do when they find themselves in a situation like that. Because that might be exciting to the other party to hear about your exploits, even going into details. But again, it has to do with your open-mindedness. So if you have found yourself in a situation like that and you now need to discuss it, you can use that as fodder or a catalyst for your own sexual being and your own sexual exploits.
Okay.
You didn't think about that, eh?
No.
It's not the answer you were looking for.
Where did missionary sex originate from?
The missionaries, Christian missionaries, wanted to control people and their behavior and sex, and they created the missionary position where the woman lies flat on her back with her legs closed, and the man attempts to stick his penis in the vagina for procreation, and procreation only. There's no pleasure associated with it. So you wouldn't have nobody perform oral sex and there's no foreplay. The woman dry like a bone, and you stick in your penis in there. So you're going to get chafing of the penis. The woman is going to be sore like hell, and that is what sex was supposed to be. There was no pleasure associated with sex by the missionaries. Christian missionaries kill sex. Full stop. And they must take responsibility for that. They should start taking responsibility just as much as they have wiped out half the population on this earth. Right? Thank God the Indians stand up to them. After, the biggest genocide on earth is not the Jews. The biggest genocide on earth is genocide against Hindus. Over 100 million of us were slaughtered. Listen to what I'm saying. Over 100 million of us. Not one. 100 million.
I didn't know that.
Well, people don't want to know that. They don't want to know that. During World War II, how many millions of Hindus were starved to death? Because that son of a bitch called Churchill wanted to call the food from India. That's why I have no respect for him. I wish they could change the name from Churchill Roosevelt Highway too. No respect for that man whatsoever. To steal the food from India to feed soldiers and starve Hindus and let them die. People don't know these things, and it's about time it come out there. Over 100 million Hindus have been slaughtered since the beginning. Every religion on this earth plunder India and kill Hindus. And they still do it to this day. People are killed. Hindus are killed for being Hindus. Still. Today. In Bangladesh, in Pakistan. If the worst thing for a Hindu family to have is a Hindu daughter. Because the Pakistani army will come and take away your daughter and marry she to a Muslim man. It happens to this day.
What could be the reason for those things happening?
Simple. They're afraid of us. Because of our knowledge. They're just simply afraid.
Are there any
And because they don't embrace it, they don't understand it, and they feel we're inferior.
Are there any misconceptions associated with Hinduism?
Of course. Everything about Hinduism is a misconception. No Christian understands Hinduism. Because first thing they'll tell you, well, you have more than one God. So what wrong? Okay. I have a business. Right? You have a manager. You have a supervisor. You have workers. You have senior workers and you have junior workers. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
But at the top, you have a boss, a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
Hinduism is that. Lord Shiva is the CEO, and you have two persons with him.
Mm-hmm.
what they'll call the Trinity, Brahma and Vishnu, right? And then from Vishnu you have all the other descendants of Lord Vishnu. But if I want a loan from a bank, don't I go and talk to the financial officer,
Yeah.
the loan officer?
Yes.
Well, right, we have a God for that. Mother Lakshmi is the person for that. She's the one who want to give you wealth. So you don't have to pray to Lord Shiva to get wealth, you go to she. It's as simple as that. People don't understand the structure of Hinduism. So if you want power and strength, you pray to Lord Hanuman. Protection, you want to pray to Lord Hanuman. If you're going on a journey, there's a God to pray to for that. Just as how the Christians have different saints for different things, Hindus have the same thing, and they are gods because they have the power to give you everything that you want. Why do Christians pray to Saint Christopher? Every taxi driver have a Saint Christopher hanging from the rearview mirror. Why? And they will tell me we are plenty God. But why are you praying to Saint Christopher? Why you have Saint Christopher in your car? Why you don't have Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone? I tell you, I could argue with them. They can't argue with me. Just as how you have an angel for everything, we have a God for everything. They are gods. They're not angels. They're gods. Because they can give you everything. And that is what they're fearful of. They don't understand that we are reincarnation of gods. Right? So whenever Lord Vishnu, which is the preserver, the creator and the preserver, although Shiva created everything, his job is to come in reincarnation in different forms throughout time. That's why we could go back millions of years, not thousands, millions. And Hindus have to start saying that millions of years ago, not thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. They have to start saying that and pounding that into people's head. Just as how they pound it into our head that thousands years ago. No. Million years ago. 1.8 million years ago.
I understand.
I'm passionate about it, because like I said, if I have to be, according to that great man in the back of you there, Mahatma Gandhi, if you are numbering one person and you speak the truth, that's all you need. Nothing else. You don't need nobody to back you up. I don't need nobody to back me up. I speak the truth. And that's why nobody could challenge me, because I speak the truth.
The next question is, do you believe women should be on top more? This is a question for both of you.
On top more, you mean for sex?
Yes.
Why not? The woman on top position is one of the positions where a woman controls the sexual act. She controls the longevity. She controls the depth of penetration. She controls the amount of energy that is expelled. She controls the pleasure. So of course.
Yeah. I mean, what is up better and what is better? A woman whining on a man or a man whining on a woman? Yeah?
Well, look, my partner put it in a more understandable way.
Okay. I understand where you're coming from.
And then you come on top of me. So, yeah, so.
Where did doggy style come from?
Doggy style is the most natural sexual act, because imitation by man, they will see animals having sex. Animals only have sex in that position. It's the most natural position. It's the most natural position for penetration, for pleasure. Because when the penis enters the vagina like this, it glides over the G-spot and into the vagina. Women will tell you it's the most pleasurable position for them. But of course, when the missionaries saw that position, they was like, nah, change that. Too animalistic, too nasty, too much pleasure in that. Woman whining back the boomsy on the man, your mother. And next thing you know, well, of course, like I said, there's nothing new in sex, because when a man watching the anus and he watching the vagina, he say, hey, look at the next hole, boy, I go in there too.
Every sex position has a meaning.
Meaning in terms of what? A name and a meaning?
No, like how missionary, came from the missionary.
No, there's people like to give it names and thing, but position comes about because of pleasure. The position in sex came about because of pleasure and to have to excite your partner differently. So if you read the Kama Sutra and if you read the Ananga Ranga, you'll see that when the Ananga Ranga deals with the sexual position, they'll tell you that the position is for maximum penetration. Penetration if the woman is pregnant, best penetration for if the woman wants to conceive a child. That's what it is. It gives you the different positioning and how the penis should enter. Best position, no. Again, in the Kama Sutra tells you about the 3 different sizes of vagina and the 3 different sizes of penis. And the position one should employ if you have a deer penis as opposed to elephant vagina. It tells you the position so that you could get maximum pleasure. And that's where it comes in.
So it depends
The
on
size of the penis, the size of the vagina. Because let's face it, you have small, medium, and large vagina, you have small, medium, large penis. So if you are a woman with a large vagina, with a man with a small penis, there are positions for you. And if you follow those positions, you'll get maximum satisfaction. Maximum, without having to step out of your relationship.
Okay.
That's why they have the position.
You ever try the roast fowl position?
What is that?
You don't know what is the roast fowl position?
No.
It's your favorite. It's your most favorite position, I'm sure. I don't know what you're saying. You don't know what's the roast fowl position? How long you listen to this program? I've been talking about the roast fowl position for the last 20 years.
Mm-mm.
You need to be fired, boy.
Me?
Have that tutorial?
You can explain.
Simple. Woman lies on her back, buttocks elevated, knees to her chest. Roast fowl. Isn't that your favorite?
Yes.
Well, right. You see, I made a good guess. Which woman don't like roast fowl position?
I didn't know that was the name of it. So the next question is, as a sexologist, how does it feel with all you've have? Well, how does it feel with all that you've accomplished in your career?
How I feel?
Yeah, with all your accomplished.
I feel I still need to educate a lot, and I still well, I feel good. I feel good about myself. I'm proud of myself. I'm not. I don't use it as arrogance, and I don't think that it's something that that I know it all. I'm still learning. As a matter of fact, in sex and sexology, you're still learning. You learn every single day, and I'm happy to be who I am. And if I have to do everything all over again, I will do it because I love what I do.
When you first started, did you have faith that you'd make it this far?
I didn't know. I had no idea where I would have made it. I had no idea where I was going with it. I thought somebody would have thrown me in jail. But I went ahead. No, no, I'm telling you the God honest truth. I thought somebody would have thrown me in jail right now. You might find it funny, but I came out with that controversial topic, talking about it freely on the air, on radio, and later on television. And I knew that I was rubbing some people the wrong way. I knew I was irritating some individuals with my talk and being frank and upfront and honest. And I was of the opinion that somebody will find some way to ban me and throw me in jail. As a matter of fact, Tat tried at one time to ban me from the airwaves. I know that one for a fact.
Really?
Yeah, of course, Tat tried to ban me.
I think the question should be asked is, are you satisfied with where you are today?
Yes, very much.
If you had to, if the maker say, right, time to go, could you say, yeah?
Oh yeah. I you know, that's a good way to put it. I have made peace with myself a long time ago. You know, I could expire tomorrow, you know, or tonight, or today, or no. I have made peace with everything. I have accomplished what I want, more than I've set out to accomplish. I think I have fulfilled my destiny. Yes, there are mistakes along the way, and yes, I would have wanted to do more, and I hope that I can do more. But yes, I feel satisfied. Nobody wants to die, right? So if somebody comes and tells you have a choice of dying now, and well, for Hindus, you don't go to heaven. We have no heaven. we have no hell, right? They say you could become one with God now, or we give it you 10 more years and you could accomplish more. Your objective in life is to become one with God. I will take what to that, because a Hindu will tell you you're given this birth, which is the highest form of birth, as a human being for one purpose and one purpose only. Do you know what that is? To elevate your soul and become one with God. That's your only purpose. So should somebody come and offer you that, you take it right away, because that is your purpose as a human being, to fulfill your destiny, and become one with God. Whatever God is, that light, that inspiration, whatever it is. So if given that opportunity, I say, sure, I'll take that now. Boom. Hey, people are talking about heaven and hell. Okay? Let's put it in that perspective. Not knocking any religion. In Hinduism, there's no hell. Right? But how come nobody come back from whatever you go for? Where we have no hell? Because first of all, when your body dies, it dies. There's no coming back for your body. So you cannot come back into this vessel. Your soul is the only living thing. Where does that soul go? So when you hear, and again, I ain't knocking no religion, but I just want people to think, if you die, and the only thing that could be judged is your soul, and the soul could feel no pain, could feel no pleasure, cannot get wet, it cannot get burned, it cannot be damaged in any way. How could you punish the soul? There's nobody to punish, because the body is not going anywhere. The body is discarded. That's why I ask people to think logically. In Hinduism, there's a book called the Garud Puran. You know, I was saying a while ago, there's a book on everything. Do you know what the Garud Puran is about? Death and what happens to the soul. It gives you a blow-by-blow account of what happens to your soul when it leaves the body. So when you die, the second that you die, the Garud Puran tell you exactly what happens to the soul and the 11-month journey that it takes to get back to the Lord, the super soul. It gives you a blow-by-blow account what happens to the soul. And Lord Krishna tells you the soul cannot feel anything. The soul is attached to the body. So when the body dies, it wants to go back into the body. Bury the body, burn the body, put the body in water, do whatever you have to do. Get rid of the body as fast as possible. So the soul can start its journey back to Godhead. It's as simple as that. So how could you tell me that if you die, you'll go to an abode where you live happy? You don't live. The body is dead. It's gone. The soul does not know what sweet tastes like. The soul does not know what sour tastes like. So you can't tell the soul, if you go to this place, you'll get sweet mango every day, if you like mango. The soul does not know the taste of anything. The soul is a light. And this is where simple logic comes in, and anybody who have a logical mind. If your soul leaves the body, how could it be punished? How could it be rewarded? The only reward you have is to go back one with God. Because God sent a spark of divinity. That's why we say namaste. Namaste, I say, means I bow to that divinity within you. So the soul is a spark of divinity. And we all sparks of divinity. We all come from the one light. So that's the light you go back to. It's a simple. And when people understand that, they wouldn't afraid heaven or hell. They wouldn't think, boy, if you do that, you're going to hell. You tell a Hindu that, they'll watch you and laugh.
I feel that's just another thing to put fear into
Of course
people.
it is.
Yeah.
Abrahamic religion does that. Put fear in people. Put fear. Because all Hindus tell you, if you don't fulfill your destiny in this life, you have to come back again. And you could come back again as an iguana. You could come back again as a dog. You could come back again as an ape. You could come back again as a fish. You could come back again as another human being. Human being life form, there's 84 million life forms on this earth, from amoeba all the way up to human beings. So you could take any one of those 84 million life forms and go through the cycle of both birth and death. The one thing we want to escape is that cycle of birth and death. That's why the Mahatma Gandhi was called the Mahatma. His name is not Mahatma Gandhi. His name is Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Mahatma means great because he was a great soul. That's how he got the name Mahatma. Maha means big or great. Atma is soul. Mahatma. People don't know that. They feel his name was Mahatma Gandhi. It wasn't. It's Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. So when you are considered to be a Mahatma, that means you are a great soul, Atma, soul. So when you die, you have done what you came here to fulfill, your soul goes back to the super soul. So yes, to answer your question, I'm ready to go. Not home, eh? Anyway, I have to
I
go.
never asked if you're ready to go, eh?
No, I am.
The next question is, what are some common reasons individuals or couples seek sex therapy?
Sex not being pleasurable, painful sex, unable to get to satisfy your partner, unable to get an erection when you need to, wife thinking it's infidelity because you have somebody on the outside, and when you come home you can't perform, husband thinking that the wife don't like them anymore because she's having pain when they're having sex. Those are the common factors. That's why it's important to listen to everything that they're saying. So you'll get a clear picture of what's happening. So you have to listen to everything.
How does sex therapy differ from other forms of therapy?
Well, other forms of therapy is just sitting down and talking. Sex therapy is the act of engaging in having the couple engage in sex and you directing what's happening. Sometimes you get involved in a physical way, but not physically, not being the main partner, but you with your instructions and whatever, so you involve physically. So that's how it's different. Therapy, most therapists like psychologists and psychiatrists and whatnot, you'll go and sit down in front of them and they'll listen to what you're saying and they will analyze it and whatnot and give you, little insights into yourself and give you little things to do at home and to overcome your problem. With sex therapy, it's much different. Sex therapy is you actually instructing and showing, and even if the person go home and do some things, you're part and parcel of what's going on. In-depth sex therapy, of course, you'll have permission from both partners if you involve 100%.
Can you explain your approach or methods when working with clients? How do you approach them with their problems?
By being straightforward and honest, the first thing, and I ask them to be that way with me. Getting them to open up. It may take more than one session for a person to open up because, first of all, you have to build that level of trust. You have to have that rapport where they understand. Although they come to you, they may not be forthright with all their information. They may not be forthcoming with everything because they have to still say, well, I never hear, let's put it this way. I deal with the most controversial of topic, which is sex. There's nothing more controversial than sex. Drug dealing, that is by the way. Arms dealing, that is by the way. War is nothing. Sex is the most controversial topic. You want to bring down a government? Let there be a sex scandal. You want to destroy a man? Talk about sex. You want to destroy a woman? Talk about sex. And I deal with the most controversial of topics. Bar none. And I've never been in a controversy.
I don't think that it should be a controversial topic because
It is the most controversial topic.
I mean, everybody has sex.
No. Again, people will say that, but not everybody embraces sex. Sex is a nasty topic. It's a taboo topic. Not because you have sex mean to say that you're willing to talk about it. How many individuals will open and express themselves about things that are sexual? In your own household, if you live with 5 people, right? How many of them will be open to talk about sex and their sexuality and sexual behavior and whatnot? Or their exploits? None. And I could tell you none. And the reason for that is because it is a taboo, secret subject. So if you want to destroy a woman, you say she's a hoe. She like plenty man. She like to bull down the place. You want to destroy a man? Say he rape a woman. Right? He like to have sex with little children. You're destroying his character. Sex, you use sex as a weapon. Sex has been weaponized over the years. It has been weaponized. The word sex, sexual behavior, sexuality. There are countries where people are persecuted because of their sexuality. They're gay, kill them. Why? They're human beings. They just do things differently. That's their cup of tea, but my religion say that is illegal. Kill them based on my religion. And not Hinduism. Hinduism don't say that. I just say it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Their religion that frowns upon it, and they say, well, that is not part and parcel of who we are. Culturally, it's not. But behind closed door, the very same people who condemn it doing the very same thing. You see a nice woman, right? You see a nice woman, she looking sexy. Half the men looking and the other half peeping. They don't want to be seen looking because the woman has sexualized herself. And they have sexualized and say she's a old hoe to dress like that. We against she for that. A woman get raped, the first thing you look at is, what kind of clothes she have on? Yeah, she look for it. We have weaponized sex. As a society, as a people, as we have made sex into such a nasty topic that nobody wants to really discuss it. So that's why when you ask the question of where did I see myself, I told you I saw myself in jail. It might sound funny, but it's the reality of things. Even countries that are open to the discussion of sex, there are certain states in the United States you can't go and talk about sex, you know. Do you know that? Right, well, I'm telling you. All the open-mindedness Americans just want to put on that they're open-minded. There are places in America you cannot talk about sex. You just can't. It's not an open topic. It's a taboo topic that should be locked away and kept locked away. In the Bible Belt, for example. And then we talk about pedophilia, and there's some states that allow a man to have sex with a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 18-year-old. And they'll tell other countries, well, change your law because the UN say to change it. But the UN ain't go tell America nothing. The International Criminal Court don't tell America nothing. There are presidents who went and lied to the world and invaded other countries and destroyed, murdered tens of thousands of people, millions of people, and they wouldn't prosecute a US president. As a matter of fact, he will not be on a wanted list anywhere in the world, but every other president in every other country would be. That's the world we live in today. There's hypocrisy everywhere you turn. There's total hypocrisy. So when it comes to sex, you will say that everybody does have sex and sex shouldn't be that way. But there are a bunch of hypocrites all over. You always hear about sexual scandal with presidents and whatnot that bring them down or you know. Mm-hmm. All right. So sex has been weaponized.
This is the last question. What do you think about sex with or without a condom? Do you think that there's more of a connection without a condom versus with a condom?
Of course there is. Any barrier between you and your partner is going to lessen the intensity of the sexual act. Then it becomes only sex for pleasure. There's no connection really. Sex with condom, it denies you the connection with the person, you know. Because it's like electricity. The penis acts as a conduit. The vagina acts as a conduit. There are electrical impulses that goes through the penis and the vagina. When you connect with the vagina or the anus, or whether it's a man with a man or a man with a woman, it doesn't matter. There's connectivity. And the energy, okay, in Hinduism they teach you about the kundalini. Do you know what the kundalini is?
No.
That's the electrical circuit that you have running up your back. The chakras and the kundalini. And when you're engaging in sex, you engage the kundalini. So that electrical impulse that goes up and down your spinal cord like this, it's connected to your vagina and it's connected to your penis. So you create a circle. When the penis is in the vagina, you create a circle. That's why it's important to kiss, so that it goes through from the penis into the vagina, up the spinal column, through the mouth and come back, and through the penis, up the spinal column, through the mouth and back into the person. That's the pleasure center. That's the intensity of sex, and that's the spirituality of sex. So when you have on a condom, you break that connection down there. It's like putting on a rubber gloves and going and touch electricity. You wouldn't get shocked. So it sounds funny, but it's a fact. So there's no electricity between you and the person. Of course, one should use a condom if you're having sex with somebody for the first time, or if you suspect that the person has STD or whatever. Condom is there to protect you, but you ask a different question. You didn't ask about protection, right? So to answer your question, it's best to have sex without a condom if you want that connectivity with the person, but it's best to have sex with a condom if you don't trust the person. I want people go and say, Dr. Raj said have sex without a condom is the best thing to do. I never said that.
I understand where you're coming from.
You might understand, but people out there just twist your words, They just, I know what time I hear people say, I say so and so. Like today, somebody telling me that they see me lying with a particular person. I say, I never lie with that person in my life, and I wouldn't lie with him. And I know for a fact I never lie with the person, and I would never lie with him. I know that for a fact. So when the person told me that they saw me with that person, I say, you never saw me with that person. Cannot be so.
Probably saw him with somebody else and assumed it was him.
No, he thought that when he called that name, it would have a connection, but there was a disconnection. Again, there's an illusion in life. This whole thing about life and whatnot is what we call in Hinduism Maya. It's an illusion. It's a game. It's an act. You come here to fulfill certain things, right? When I started to be a sexologist, my godfather, which was again one of the most revered pundits and most learned pundits in this country, he told me, he said, Raj, you were born for this. You were born for this. I'm his chela. He's my guru, and he told me that, and he never condemned anything that I do. He would always embrace whatever I do because he knew I was born for this. And if you're born for something and you find your calling and you are able to develop that calling and channel your energy towards it, then you have fulfilled your purpose on earth. You have done that. You came here for that reason, and you have fulfilled that reason. You bring children into the world, you take care of your children, you have no outside children, that somebody's suffering. You know what it is to have an outside child and you don't know if that child is eating, drinking, sleeping comfortable? That's why I wonder about certain human beings when they could do that. If you are a compassionate individual with empathy for another human being, how could you have a child with a woman and not take care of that child? That is part and parcel of your DNA. And you don't care if that child is eating, drinking, sleeping, and you take away from things from that child to punish the mother or to punish the father. What kind of human being are you when you do that? How could your soul ever go back to the super soul? Never. So sometimes you see somebody suffering, you have to just leave them because there's a reason for that. There is a reason behind it.
Well, not many men think like you.
Well, I hope to get at least one or two to think like me. At least one or two.
Majority are immature.
Yeah. Think that way so that you become a better human being. And that's the first place to start with most men. Most men will tell you, I hear some fellas boasting that they have 3 and 4 children with 3 or 4 different women. And I look at them with scorn. Because in my mind, you have lost your purpose in life. And I post myself, well, that's my purpose in life, to make a set of children. No, it's not your purpose in life. Your purpose in life was to make children, yes, but for you to take care of your responsibility. It means you're an irresponsible individual. So sex is not just about having sex with somebody and getting them pregnant. So that's the importance of using a condom or using contraceptive. Although some religion forbids you from using contraceptive, which I think is a crazy thing, because maybe at the time they were talking about sex was a time that people would only have sex to have children, but there was never a time on this living earth and planet when people were only having sex to have children. There was never that time. Never. Because once a penis goes into a vagina and you know the pleasure of that, mister, you'll tell me that you having sex just to have children? People are so stupid. So there was never a time since the dawn of man and woman, mankind, that a man stick his penis into the soft folds of a vagina and he say, okay, well, here what? We're having sex once a month so we can make a child. Because nobody came here with a manual. And there's no text, written or otherwise, that was handed down from time immemorial or from the beginning of time that tell you should only have sex at so and so time to only have a child. None. And I challenge anyone to show me that text, or that philosophy, or that saying. It's man-made. Those things are man-made. And it was made by a man who never had sex, and he sit down in a room and say, here what? You should only have sex to procreate, nothing else. Because he had thinking his mother and father had sex for pleasure. You feel you're living out in the wilderness, and the whole world was a wilderness at one time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're living out in the wilderness. You have no TV. You know people didn't have TV until 1960s, right? In Trinidad. So you had no TV. You had no radio. You had no Sexplosion. You had nothing to entertain you. You go out and you work hard whole day. And in those days, men working hard, so they have good testosterone. You come home and you lie down next to your sweet wife, however old she may be. Because in them days, a man might be 20-something and you have a wife 12 years old. And that was the norm. Right? You ain't get hard on. You don't want to stick it in her? Come on, man. Whether it be the Western days, Apaches attacking your left, right, and center, you feel it for sex.
Right?
Columbus going to raid the West Indies and murder everybody, that murderous son of a bitch. Bro, they're still having sex. Didn't he rape all the women that they found? People don't know that history of Columbus, but he was a rapist and a criminal. They feel he was a great man. He wasn't. He mistakenly fought. He was heading to India, you know. How many persons remember that from school? Columbus was heading to India and discovered the West Indies. He didn't discover shit. He bunks up the West Indies and he bunks up island that had people. If you discover it, how it had people on it already.
Right.
But the Europeans will say, well, we discover you all, you know. You're inferior to us, we discover you. We bring disease and rape and murder and money. That's what they brought. That's what they brought. So he was heading, everybody was heading to India at one time. The Portuguese, the Chinese, the Europeans, everybody wanted to go to India. For whatever reason, they want to go to India. Because they knew India was the civilization that was there long before them. The Greeks told them that. That's it. Democracy was in India long before they even talked about democracy in Greece. And we must tell people these things. And anybody want to argue the point, come to me. Anybody want to challenge the point, come to me. I'll show you where it's written. And I'll show you, I'll prove it to you. Because it's about time we stand up for it. But there's a but. The but is, I'm thankful that the West Indies was discovered, and I'm thankful that the British brought us here, because I'm a Trinidadian. I'm a Trinidadian with roots in India. I'm a Trinidadian with roots in my culture and my religion, and I'm proud of it. But I'm a Trinidadian first and foremost. But I come from a strong cultural background. Unfortunately, those who were brought here as slaves lost that cultural background because it was taken away from them. It was beaten out of them. I was watching some show the other day, and everybody had the same last name because it was a village in medieval America. I have to say medieval because everybody was at sword and whatnot. And everybody had the same last. I said, well, where did they get a stupid name from? Brown, black. Gray. That's your last name? Those are colors. You so narrow thinking that you have no last name. You have no name could connotate who you are, where you come from, your lineage. Come on. Come on. So that was fostered upon the slaves, and they was forced to have these names and whatnot that have no meaning to them. So they take away the culture and they take away the religion, which is a terrible thing to do of people. They try the same thing with the Hindus that come here. There's only two religions came to the West Indies from India, you know, Hindus and Muslims. There were no Christians that come. None. And you try to convert them, and you beat it out of them, and you do this and you do that. And I always say, there was only one religion in India, which was Hindus. And those who are not Hindus were the cowards. To this day. Because they're the ones who were converted, and they were forced to convert. But even if you're forced to, because I remember my grandfather's words, he was asked to convert, and he said, no, that ain't happening. I prefer die than convert. I'm not going to convert to anything. I'm a Sanatanist in one, that's it. And I learned that from my grandfather, my Aja. They sacrificed thousands, millions of people died for that. You know, not one, you know, millions. I told you, over 100 million Hindus. There was one Mughal king who killed 100,000 Hindus in one day. You know. In one day, you know. You know what it is to kill 100,000 people in one day? One day. Because they wouldn't convert to Islam. So, again, I'm not saying these things to hurt anybody, but I'm saying these things to strengthen people. Know where you come from. If you don't know where you came from, how could you know where you're going? If you don't know your ancestors, how could you know? What would you teach your children or your grandchildren? What? What you going to tell them to just hate the white man because of slavery? No. That happened, yes, but move on from that and rekindle and reconnect to who you are. Learn of who you are and where you come from and what. I mean, even if you're of a mixed race or whatever, you have the best of both worlds, or the best of three worlds, or two worlds, or whatever. But you have a connection, a connectivity. So you have a strength that other people don't, the other person don't have. That's what I keep telling people. That's how they strengthen themselves. And be embracing and be open-minded enough to, don't let nobody full thing in your head and say, boy, you're Douglas, so no Indian go like you. Or you're Douglas, no Negro person will like you. No, you come from both worlds. Embrace that. Embrace that. And go to history. That's why that song, Jahajibai, is a powerful song. I remember a great writer that we have in Trinidad condemning that song, and I look at him and I laugh. And I say, although you are a great writer, you're dotish. You're dotish. And this was at a cricket match. You don't understand the meaning of the song. And you are a great songwriter, you know, but you don't understand the meaning of that song. But he wanted to condemn it because he didn't write it. Typical jealousy, you know. That's why he was condemning it. You don't understand something, so you condemn it. Or you don't want to wrap you, because you didn't do it, it's not good. No. It should never be like that. So that's why one of the questions that you ask about sexology and whatnot, that's why I love sexology, because it opened up my mind to so much things that were hidden and taboo and locked away, and you were made to think that it's wrong. And when you read and you understand and you decipher things for yourself, you realize that all these hidden things, that all these things that people were telling you about it, was based on their own fears and their own misinterpretation of things. You cannot tell me that a woman who is having a period at, let's say, 12 years of age don't have sexual feelings. That's the purpose. That's what God made you to do. Once you start having your period, you'll start having sexual feelings because you are the reproductive age. You have started your reproductive age. So when one understands and studies sex, I'm not saying based on the law, you're not supposed to be having sex. But how are you going to tell a person whose vagina is itching for sex not to have sex? You're going to create a law to tell the person, here what? The law says you shouldn't have sex. Well, right, the law to watch me every day, or every minute of the day. So that person you consider to be a child who's having adult feelings. Now, they'll say, well, the brain isn't developed. But why did God make it in such a way that you start having sexual feeling because before you have reached full maturity? Why? You have to ask that question. Why did whoever created you give you the ability to have sexual feelings or to even have sex before you have become fully mature based on the eyes of the law or science? How come? And answer this question if you could. How come? And I'm saying 12-year-old, but there are 9-year-old girls who are having period now, right? But let's use 12 years. There are 12-year-old girls who have feelings for sex, but they can't vote, they can't drink, they can't do anything else, right? They say they're not mature mentally, but you have the feelings for sex. So what kind of dotish God we have that will create a human being like that? A boy, 12 years of age, getting an erection, ejaculating, feeling to have sex. But here, you're old enough to vote. Here, old enough to make decisions according to the law. So something has to be out of balance. Something has to be out of balance. But it happens. So instead of we burying our heads in the sand and passing laws and saying, okay, let's make it illegal for that to happen to protect the person. But if you ask any young person who have those feelings, if they have masturbated, play with the pussy, stick something inside, put a hairbrush handle inside them, put a candle. Candle is the number one, and I think customs should ban candle too, because it's the number one thing that people stick inside of their vagina. Since custom want to ban dildo, they should ban candles. Because, well, research, and this is research, international research, candles are the number one things that women, girls stick in their vagina. So custom should ban candles. No candles should come into the country. That's how dotish they are. So if they want to go by that, you could use a candle as a dildo. I'm sorry, you can't say these things in court, because you know the magistrate will put you down or the judge will put you down, because that is their domain. But if you're being real, be real. Say it. And let it start thinking. If it's so dotish. If you want to go to the letter of the law, okay, ban it. Because you could use a candle. And they should ban baygan and cucumber and anything that's shaped like a penis. No. Ban it. Go around chopping on all the fields.
Ban the hands and fingers.
Fingers. It's how dotish we are. We live in a dotish society, based on Christian laws. So, getting back to what I was saying, you have people who have sexual feelings before anything else. Why is that so? You can create you as a child could create another child. What made God do that? I can't answer that. As a sexologist, I can't answer that. And women don't make eggs. They release eggs. You're born with a certain amount of eggs, That's why you have a period. Every month you expel an egg. Right? And when you stop expelling eggs, you go into menopause. So if you only have 25 eggs, after 25 a year and 2 years, 2 years and a month, You're going into menopause. That's the reality of it. So if you started your period at 10 or 12, by 14 you're into menopause. Because, nobody does that, but I'm just saying. I'm exaggerating the point. So that it sticks in people's head. And a boy of 12 producing sperm could impregnate any woman. Why? And a woman, when she's gone through menopause, at the end of her birthing cycle, she cannot have any more children. But a man could still have children until he die, once he have enough sperm. Why? Why is that so? If anybody could answer that, then you know why God made it so. Then you know for a reason. Well, then you know God. Then you were there when that design was being designed. When it was being put together. By whoever did it. Whatever did it. So those are the questions that sexologists, I like to say that sexologists are social anthropologists. We study society, we study people, we study a bit of sociology, psychology, and all those different things, because you are constantly studying things in a different way, with a sexual thread running through everything. There is a sexual thread that runs through everything. So whether it be from the standpoint of spirituality, which is what we started the program with, or pleasure, and strictly pleasure. I don't like to deal with the criminal part of it, because rape is not a crime of sex. When they're charged with rape, you're not charged with a crime of sex. You're charged with a crime of violence. Violence against another person. That's what rape is. But I don't like to deal with that as part of sexology and sexual, because it means to say the person who's perpetrating the sexual act, they have no control over themselves. So you are a perpetrator of a crime. You have no control over yourself. But I know for a fact that if that same person gets sexual relief, he or she will not engage in that rape or that crime of rape. And there are studies that are done on that. But getting back to what we were talking about, from the spiritual side to the pleasure side, thank God the spirituality connects with every aspect of it. It does. You could like somebody. If you like somebody and you have sex with them, isn't it different from if you just have sex or so?
Yeah.
All right. So that answers it. You like the person.
You enjoy it more.
You enjoy it more. You like being with the person. You like looking at them. You like the feeling that you get from them. You like the penetration. You like that energy that you feel from them. And sometimes you have sex and you feel drained because the amount of energy you expel doing it, it weakens you, it tires you out. But it also invigorates you after a while, because you rebuild your energy and you absorb that energy and you use it differently. In Tantra and Tantric sex, it teaches you how to suck the energy out of the other person. Take the energy and put energy into the other person. It teaches you that also. So I hope we have covered everything that you want me to cover this evening. Answered all your questions?
Yes, you did.
I see you have number 18, but I have not written it. That's for you to come up with that question, or what?
Are you satisfied?
I am satisfied.
You learn something?
Yes, I did.
What you learn?
I learned a lot of things, especially about Hinduism. I didn't know all those things took place. You know? Because they don't, how to say it.
Nobody publishes it or publicizes it, because they're afraid and ashamed of what they've done. The British wouldn't tell you how much, they wouldn't tell you how much trillions of dollars they have stolen from India, $60 trillion. They wouldn't tell you about how many millions of Hindus they kill. They will never tell you that, because they're ashamed, and they should be ashamed. Just as how all the persons who call themselves American, the white Americans who were there who came over on the Mayflower and whatnot. You know what? Millions of Indians they kill. Not Indians from India. American Indians, wild Indians, native Indians.
Yeah.
You know what millions they kill? Wouldn't want to go into that because it has hurt me. Those things has hurt me because we as human beings are the most destructive things on this earth.
And then they just want to call it their land.
Yeah, their land, my land. This land is my land. Thief it from somebody else and say it's mine. But that's what the British has done, and that's what the people who settled in America was British and Dutch and from Europe, so they're a bunch of thieves anyway. That's all they were. If you tell them that, they feel hurt and they want to kill you for saying it. But the fact is the fact. You look at history and you see the facts. We were fostered upon the West Indies. We were forced to be here. And that's why we should be so patriotic towards Trinidad and Tobago, our national instrument and everything that is Trinidadian. We should be, and Tobagonian, we should be so patriotic about it that nobody could shake that. When Independence Day come along at the 31st of this month, wear your red, white, and black. Don't study red belongs to the PNM and black belongs to some other party and white belongs to another party. No, red, white, and black is our national colors. That is what we have to study. For their party, think about I being a Trinidadian, first and foremost. And nobody taking that away from you. Trinbagonian, a Tobagonian. Identify with that. That is what we need to identify with. I tell you, when I remember the first time while living in the United States and I hear steel pan over there, man, I jump up, everybody was like, he mad, or what kind of thing is this? So they beating oil drums. It wasn't as refined as you have them now. It wasn't chrome pan and thing, a long time, Now it just looks shiny and nice. It was gay desperados at that time came to Miami to perform. We had a ball because to me that is my culture. I'm a Trinidadian first and foremost. I look Indian. I identify with Indian and Hinduism, but I'm a Trinidadian. I wonder how many people could do that. Embrace your ancestral past, but be strong in who you are here and now. How many persons? Because in Hinduism they teach you that, They teach you to honor your desh, your country of birth. That's the first thing it teaches you, to honor your country of birth first and foremost. Be patriotic to where you're born. There's a reason for it. Anyway, Master Control, where are you?
I'm right here with you.
I thought you're gone.
No, man. I like to learn it, man. I have always have space in my memory bank.
Yeah, we must always have space and we must always have that hard drive.
I was lapping up that Hinduism stuff you informed us about.
Well, you see that it is simply to inform people so that they can do their own research and they can see where the truth lies and they can make their own judgment. I'm not trying, and one thing Hindus don't try to do is convert anybody, We cannot do that, You cannot convert anybody. They remain with what they have, but they could still believe in what you believe in. Well, my friend, we have to say good evening. And again, to everyone out there, International Steel Pan Day. Continue to embrace our steel pan and embrace who we are and be strong in your conviction. Goodbye.
Thank you, Dr. Raj. It's been a pleasure once again.
Thank you.